On to page 2 of 7.6. So we set up this idea that if we're trying to solve a quadratic equation, we're going to want to factor and then use the zero product principle. So in the assignment, in the problem set, you'll actually start in factored form. So at the beginning of the problem set, your homework assignment, which some of you are choosing to watch the videos at home and then do the homework assignment in class so you can get all the help you need. So I think that's a great technique. That's what's the original intent of the way I set up the class this term. So at the beginning of the problem set, the equations will already be factored so that you can practice the zero product principle. Then later we'll combine the factoring and then using the zero product principle. But let's look at the overall steps here. First thing will be to rearrange to standard form, which means that you take everything to one side and set it equal to 0. So there'll be the x squared piece, the x piece, and the c piece, the constant. So the quadratic piece, the linear piece, and the constant will all be on one side, and then you'll have it equal to 0. So sometimes you'll have to rearrange before you get started. And then you'll factor. You'll use the system we've been building all chapter 7 long, where we're boringly good. Is there a GCF? How many terms? And after how many terms, the answer to that, 2, 3, or 4, will determine what steps we take next. Okay, so that's our boringly good strategy there. From there, we'll set each factor to 0. What we're doing is we're using the zero product principle. Some of you may have learned it as the zero product property. At least I did when I was first being exposed to algebra. From there, you'll solve each equation for x, because you've made new equations here. For every factor that you set equal to 0, you create a new equation, okay? And then you'll solve that equation for x. So if there's 2 factors, you'll have 2 equations. 3 factors, you'll have 3 equations, okay? So there'll be 1 equation per factor. And these should feel easy to you because they're going to be linear equations. All right, this is Math 60 stuff that we're doing now to finish off these problems. And of course, we go back to our methods that we learned in Math 62 when we were solving these equations, that you use substitution to check your answer. And because there'll be several steps involved in these, you'll want to go back to the original equation, of course. We practiced that in Math 60. So again, at the beginning of the assignment, the equations will be already factored, so you can just jump in. They'll already be in standard form, set equal to 0. They'll already be factored. You just get to jump in and set each factor equal to 0. So imagine, as you look at this, you're saying something times something equals 0. And the zero product property says, and I'll go ahead and write that in words here, something times something equals 0. So that means either this first something equals 0 or the second something equals 0. So we've got 2 factors, 2 equations. The first one, x plus 7 equals 0. We take the first factor and set it equal to 0. Then we take the second factor and set it equal to 0. 2 factors, 2 equations. Then we take our 3x minus 2 equals 0. Because either situation is a possibility, okay? And we'll learn as we go why there can be more than one answer here. Sometimes there's 2, sometimes there's none, and sometimes there's 1. And we'll look a little bit later down the road why we have those certain situations. But for now, let's just get good at solving them. So here, in the blue on the left, x plus 7 equals 0. We subtract 7 from both sides. We get x is equal to negative 7. Over here, we add 2 to both sides. We get 3x equals 2, divide by 3. Sorry, it's a little squish there. And x is equal to 2/3. So we do a quick check, plug in negative 7. Here you get negative 7 plus 7 is 0. So it doesn't even matter what's in here. 0 times something does equal 0. Over here you plug in 2/3, the 3's cancel, you get 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. Doesn't matter what it looks like over here, 0 times anything is going to be 0. So our 2 answers here, and we'll put them in set notation form here. is -7 and also 2/3 are possible answers. I'll go ahead and circle it here so it's easy to see. You shouldn't really, if you leave yourself enough room, you should just be able to put the answer underneath here, but I didn't want to write over the instructions, so I was a little long here in using up some paper space, so I apologize for that. Okay, let's move on to some that are not factored to begin, and that'll be in the next video.